So, hey guys, today we're talking about card effects. And the type of card effect I want to talk about in particular is the really nichely not used kind of effect of this effect, I guess. Quick effect. You can activate this effect. The activated effect becomes something else. So, there are a few cards in the game that do this. So, just to name a few, we have Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World. We have Phantom of Yubel. There is also, I believe, the Abyss Actor field spell. And there should probably be, like, maybe at most one or two more cards with the effect to do an effect change. And wait, yeah, there's Bamboozling Gossip Shadow as well. But yeah. This type of effect has so much room just for interesting things, and it's super useful for basically just archetypes in general. So I'm going to show you guys basically a custom card idea I've just kind of cooked up the other day. So with Unchained, like this won't really fix everything in Unchained, but this would be really nice to have in Unchained. So imagine we have a Unchained fusion monster that you can make via contact fusion. And this is either going to affect, I don't know, like monster effects or just all of your opponent's card effects. And basically, it'll be something like when your opponent activates a card uh, or effect, the activated effect instead becomes your this. Well, it should be either your opponent destroys a card or destroy one of your opponent's cards, so your opponent has input. So it's a little bit more back and forth. So you'd have the idea of like, well, I know my opponent has Unchained Back Row. Do I pop that? Or they have maybe like Unchained Soul of Rage. Do I pop this? Do I pop the fusion? But the fusion has a trigger to kind of like perform a monster reborn on itself. So if you're also the Unchained player, maybe you're thinking, oh, I really want to negate this card, but I don't want to negate it necessarily in the sense that if I negate it now, like I would have normally just uh kind of like change the effect here off rip, but if I do, I'll lose maybe like Escape of the Unchained and I'll lose a pop here. So maybe I actually let that go and use it later on something else because I have two interactions versus like one interaction. Maybe that's more worthwhile. You have things to think about like that. And for the contact fusion, I'm thinking something like you can shuffle back your banished or in graveyard specifically only um, unchained monsters to special summon the fusion. Specifically, though, it should be, I'm thinking like one link unchained and one non link unchained. And if the card is specifically popped, then it should be able to return a card, I think. Or not return a card, special summon a unchained monster from your graveyard, which isn't like an insane effect, but just having an effect would help with if your opponent chooses to destroy this card. That's about it. That or it adds like a card from your graveyard to your hand, which helps with like Abominable Unchained Souls somewhat annoying effect of needing to discard a card to do the destroy effect. And you still do kind of want follow up, so it helped with that a little bit, if that matters, I guess. So yeah, that was the basic idea for this, and you could apply a lot of different, apply to a lot of different archetypes. A specific effect where it doesn't like benefit them too much, but still gives your opponent like some things to think about, some things to mess around with. Hell, you could even change it from to make it even more interesting, we could change the effect to instead your opponent can target a card on the field and destroy it. Well, actually, that's not how an effect change works. So instead, you can just make it your opponent can generically destroy any card on the field, and not just your opponent's cards to make things a little bit even more spicy, honestly. And I think that'd be pretty gnarly in the mirror, where you can uh, try to get your opponent's card effect to not resolve, and then they pop one of their cards. That card was actually like maybe an unchained card. Like, let's say they set escape, and then they activate, I don't know, just whatever in hand, and then you just use the pop effect, and then they just pop escape, and then it goes crazy. I guess that'd be the general idea. Escape being used like that, I think, is kind of cool. Maybe. So yeah, there is a lot of potential with this type of card effect. And what is really amazing about if we have a card effect like this, so not specifically with maybe like Grapha a little bit, Grapha's a little bit too splashable. With like the Unchained kind of deal, if we had like maybe an Appaloosa in this case, so let's say our end board is, I don't know, Appaloosa plus some Unchained stuff. If we tried to slap Appaloosa on this board, then Appaloosa is detrimental because it doesn't have the synergy with this negate in particular. So the only feasible way for us to use Appaloosa would be, I guess, to really hold Appaloosa, or not really hold Appaloosa. We spam out all of Apple's negates immediately, I guess. That might be what we're looking for. But it might not be possible, making it very anti-synergistic. So if we give our opponent essentially the ability to pop one of our cards, they can just pop Appaloosa. So let's say we have like Chain 1, Branded Fusion, Chain Link 2, effect to negate, and then on res, Chain Link 2, pop Appaloosa, Chain Link 1, Fusion doesn't resolve or something. So something like that would be pretty neat, I think. And this wouldn't necessarily be a thing you would need for every single deck, but just having archetypal boss monsters feel like they're your boss monsters, I think, is uh, a very important thing. Well, it is to me at least. For when my boss monsters feel like my boss monsters, and not just like a random N-word piece. It feels like a little more involved, a little more personal. So a few examples of boss monsters like this, like they're not necessarily good decks, but in terms of just boss monsters, we have the ninja boss monsters, for example. We have Maizen. We have, well, kind of Geo. We also have, let's see, Yagurumaru. So with Maizen, this special summons ninja monsters specifically from the deck. So if you don't have any ninja monsters, all this guy can do is attack directly if you steal Maizen. Maizen feels like he works for me and not for my opponent, you know? Even if my opponent were to take this. And kind of same deal with Geo. There's not really that much you can do with Geo if you're my opponent. He's kind of just a guy, honestly. The most annoying thing you could do is you like flip up Geo, flip itself face down, and then flip down one of my guys. But that doesn't matter too much because I can contact views with those face down cards to make like a Maizen or Yagurumaru. And if you were to special summon a Yagurumaru to your field, you can't banish any cards because you don't have any ninja or ninjutsu art cards in your wherever, right? Let's see. Banish one other from your... so it has to be one other, so it cannot banish itself. Well, I guess the only way for Yagurumaru effect to actually work would be if you stole one of my ninja cards and then special summon Yagurumaru, which is like insanely jank. Because that's like more or less 2 Snash Steals worth of effort to just get one activation on Yagurumaru. And you know, this really does feel like my boss monster, you know, and not my opponent's boss monster or just like a generic guy, you know? It feels like your homie, your bro, you know? Not just like a random dude, I guess, if that makes sense. Like Appaloosa, Appaloosa ain't loyal, that's all I'm saying. So let's say we go chain link 1, we do something, I don't know. Let's see, what would be a thing we could do? just activate Max E in main phase, sure. And then our opponent sees, oh, you activated a monster effect in the main phase, triple tactics talents, take Appaloosa. And now all of a sudden, oh, our opponent has three, you know, 3, 4, whatever monster negates. Now it's their Appaloosa. It's not really our Appaloosa. You know what I'm saying? But when a card is your bro, you know, they don't betray you, you know? So let's say that theoretical fusion I mentioned, if my opponent were to take that negate, kinda negate, then even if you did have the effect to activate that card, and there was no activation condition, like this is a quick effect if you have this card in your graveyard or something, there are effects like that. But if there even if there wasn't anything like that, you don't really want to activate that negate effect necessarily because it just gives me a non-target pop against your board. But you're not playing a deck where you necessarily can tank the destroy effect like Unchained can tank it like super easily. And it does not affect us negatively at all, and sometimes it can even positively affect us. So I really like that idea for a boss monster. You know, boss monsters I feel like could be your boss monsters to some extent. Like there's some like I guess Appaloosa. You can kind of view Appaloosa as kind of a mercenary. You know, where you hire Appaloosa to do a job. In this case, it's negating Nibiru, right? I guess we can view it kind of that way. But when it feels like well, what it feels like for these boss monsters is they're not just like mercenaries, they're your guys, you know? It feels a lot more, I guess, personal, a lot more like these are your main cards. Like, if I were to put it into other words, it would be something like these guys are basically the main part of your deck, you know? And then the other guys are just kind of filler, you know? Where you kind of just hired a few guys to do some jobs. Like, let's say you're working in like construction or something. These guys are the guys you work with on a daily basis. They got your back, and then you might need someone for like some specific job, and you hire like SP Lil Knight. You know, SP Lil Knight still doesn't really work for your company, but SP Lil Knight, you do need SP Lil Knight to do a specific job. In this case, we'll say maybe banishing skill drain or something. I don't know. Yeah, just something like that, I guess. Or Appaloosa, where you need something for Nibiru. Otherwise, your board just gets nuked. Yeah, I guess. I don't really know construction, honestly. Should have thought this example through more. But yeah, you probably get the idea, right? So, well, a downside to certain decks, though, where this is the case where, well, it's not every single deck per se, but with certain decks, mirrors do become like abhorrent. They're like the worst thing in the world, and they're super unfun for some reason. Well, one of the reasons I think mirrors suck is because, well, your deck is just ridiculously effective against your own deck for no reason. So, one such example we'll go with Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul absolutely murders Vanquish Soul, and it's like the stupidest thing ever. So, first off, with how Vanquish Soul combo works, the going first player has an advantage in general with their engine because the engine requires you to add a bunch of cards, and you have to do so throughout like 2 turns, basically. So, we go Rosin Search, Xiaolong Search, and then we can do Rosin Search and Xiaolong Search on our opponent's turn again. So we've searched 4 cards. And during turn, in this case, it'll be turn 2. When it's your opponent's turn, if they're also in Vanquish Soul, then they can only do 2 searches. So you have twice the amount of searches done versus what they have. And this doesn't account for like Heavy Borger or anything, which would be able to also give you 2 draws, giving you an overwhelming like 6 card advantage on top of like your opponent. Well, actually, it's not 6 cards worth of advantage because they do get 2 searches. So subtract 2, 4 card advantage, if that means anything, I guess. There's also the fact that Vanquish Soul has only the ability to dodge targeted effects. So non-targeting effects are basically their kryptonite. So yeah, very devastating. And would you like to know what type of targeting Vanquish Soul itself does? Non-targeting. So if you're going second in the mirror, you're basically getting brutalized like terribly. So if you specifically like normal summon Rosin, there's no follow-up. If something happens to this Rosin, you take out this normal summon, it's over, right? But the idea would be like, oh, so normal summon Rosin effect, then chainlink 2, let's say, I don't know, Raigeki break. We can chainlink 3 heavy Borger to tag out the Rosin, and then we still have a guy on field and can still make some plays, right? But if we were to go ahead and just take out the Rosin, so it would be like chainlink 1 Rosin effect to search, chainlink 2, let's say Mirror Jade, Caesar Valius effect, Snow Devil. You can't tag out against any of these card effects, and you don't really have a way to put an additional Vanquish Soul body onto your field for the most part. The only 2 ways you have after Rosin are Stake Your Soul and Vanquish Soul Pantera, so this is not searchable. Pantera is searchable, but also Pantera's attribute is terrible for combo. So, not great. One of the worst things that could happen, I guess, is even if you do have Pantera, if this specifically gets banished, like Rosin gets banished, then you have 1 less attribute for Xiaolong, which means you can't really do the search on this. So yeah, that also sucks. And then to special summon Xiaolong, actually, if we were to do Pantera effect, we actually need an Earth as well, so we need magically like 1 fire plus Xiaolong plus Pantera plus random Earth monster, or no, it has to be an Earth monster for Pantera. So that's like 4 cards in your hand, and then you need Rosin specifically because you normal summon Rosin. So that's literally an exact 5-card hand to make a play after something happens to your normal summon, basically. So I mean, Stake Your Soul also can take the place of Pantera, but like Pantera is also a 1-of. I should have mentioned that. And this is very ashable, so there's also that issue. So the issue with this in particular is like, you can think of it as a 50-50. It's not genuinely a 50-50, but you know, the odds of drawing Stake Your Soul are the same odds as your opponent having Ash Blossom Joyous Spring. So it's technically like more like a 30% chance if your opponent has like an Ash Blossom Joyous Spring or not in their hand. Well, you can know if they have it in their hand or not, potentially if they reveal with like Xiaolong effect or Rosin effect on Ash Blossom, in which case you know for a fact this will never resolve then. But yeah. The going second for Vanquish Soul, terrible. For Kashtira, this one's also pretty terrible. If you do like the Kashtira full combo where you have Shangri-Ira on the field, then activate Shangri-Ira on your opponent's turn. If you activate either effect of Shangri-Ira, it doesn't matter when you activate it, this allows your opponent to Zeus your entire board. And this is like not possible to deal with practically. So think of it like I guess all of your Kashtira cards, they are not quick effects aside from a Rise Heart. But a Rise Heart, if you specifically do the Shangri-Ira combo, for the most part, this should not have enough materials to activate. So Shangri-Ira will typically be in defense position. We can then go ahead, make Kashtira a Rise Heart, do battle into Shangri-Ira. Then this will go ahead and meet the conditions for Zeus's summoning condition, and then on top of a Rise Heart, you can just summon Zeus. And to summon a Rise Art, you can just use any Kashtira, which is an inherent summon. So that this doesn't start a chain either. So we can summon literally like any of these 1, 2, 3, 4 cards here, and you can technically also rates off search one of them. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards that you can just resolve to instantly, well, not resolve, just if you open any of these 5, you could board wipe your opponent's entire field without them being able to respond or do anything. Well, with any of their archetype cards at least, the only like plays you're looking for here would be probably infinite impermanence on Zeus, I guess, is a big one. Called by the Grave can also work because of the amount of materials on their Arise Heart and whatnot. So if you banish a card, then this will trigger the Arise Heart, which will then in turn trigger your like Fenrir, Unicorn, whatever. And this will end up, even if we don't have Fenrir, this will end up giving our Arise Heart enough material to banish their Arise Heart, because we should have one more material than our opponent's Arise Heart. So what I'm saying is basically the going second Kashira player has an advantage for some reason. If they are playing specifically like a going second Kashira deck, even more so, and it becomes even more outrageous, I would say. But simply, Kashira Mirror sucks, and you can get completely sacked just because your opponent's playing the exact same thing. And to an extent, like Tenpai, not really sure what you can do in the mirror as a fellow Tenpai player. So you can activate like Sengen Summoning, and then you can go into one of those monsters that prevents your opponent from activating cards in the battle phase. So that you can make the 7 that does that, or the 10, and then that would turn off your opponent's one and only interaction on board, being Erratic Seal's Pass. Well, yeah, and then you can just kind of OTK your opponent. That's the Tenpai mirror. Isn't that great? You just OTK the other guy and do like one combo. If he goes second, same kind of deal, right? So basically, in a mirror, you have a terrible matchup against yourself. So here's another one that I'll throw in just for fun. Zombie World mirror is terrible, like horrendous. So Doom King with a Zombie World is normally very powerful, having a non-targeting banish or negate. So now the extra downside is this negate works for effects in hand, in banish as well. So this becomes like a generic monster negate basically. So you can't even resolve zombie monster effects in hand if you have any. And also, of course, like Doom King's effects are very powerful against specifically zombie decks either way. Being able to banish from field or graveyard, very strong. And also is like insane recursion. And it's basically the best zombie card. So if your opponent has it and you don't have it, you're basically cooked. Like, not much else to say there. If you can steal it, though, Doom King is like a very insane double-edged sword. Where if your opponent does get access to your Doom King, you kind of do get cooked. So there's that aspect to worry about a little bit here. And I mean, yeah, it's just kind of pain and suffering in some instances of like mirrors. So let's find a mirror here. Let's see, we have technically Ryzeal, I guess. So Detonator. How do you beat Detonator with actually just Ryzeal cards? So let's think about this for a second. If we try to use X Ryzeal, our opponent will have Cross without a doubt. So if we activate X Ryzeal effect, it is impossible to negate Detonator. Because of Cross, you cannot chain block Mirror Logic Aggregator. So it doesn't really matter the chain order. So we could even go Chainlink 1, Mirror Logic, target Detonator, and then X Chainlink 1, or not Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 to attempt to chain block, but cross ignores chain blocking, so you can't negate detonator that way. And special summoning X-Ray Seal, when you activate X-Ray Seal effect, this gets popped, and this just does so many pops. You don't have enough monsters to kind of do anything against detonator. So let's just do a quick count. Let's assume you special summon X, that's one body, one pop. Normal summon Ice, pop number 2. And then it special summons a guy that will trigger. So let's say we do Star Ryzeal. That's 3 pops, so 1, 2, 3. We can pop all 3 of these. And then you special summon Sword Ryzeal. Didn't really do that yet. Pop 4. That's pretty easy to do. Because you have, technically, you have plugin, plus you have Plasma Hole. So we can even do, like, Plasma Hole. So we're going to assume you detached to negate, maybe, off of Hulu Drive for cross. But we can do Plasma Hole to pop our detonator, technically, or what would we pop here? Well, we could pop the detonator if we wanted to, I suppose. But yeah, we can pop 2 of your guys. We could even choose to pop, for example, like Ice plus Star, or I guess whatever you set off of the Star plus Ice, just whatever. Or I guess we could pop Star plus the set, and then we can attach a guy to like detonator, and then we still have more detonator pops. So essentially, detonator has a pop reserved for every single Ryzeal monster that you could possibly have access to. So that's a lovely mirror right there, where I don't think there's any hope or anything you can really do about this. So you're probably going to get cooked. And let's do one more mirror example, I guess. Let's see. We have... Oh. Orcus. Well, the thing about the mirror, well, just mirrors in general, is also that your opponent has probably similar levels of deck knowledge as you do. So let's say your choke point will be like, we'll just say Abomination's Prison or something, right? Assuming this is the choke point, your opponent would know that too. So they'd be able to hold out until you activate like Abomination's Prison type deal. So that's a thing. But yeah. This interaction, Orcus Crescendo, this is pretty tough, pretty hard to deal with. And let's see, how could we dismantle an Orcus board? Well, Orcus board as hard as possible with Orcus. Does this attach any Machine XYZ? One of your banished machine monsters. Okay. Well, with the XYZ here, but yeah, let's see. And it says you can activate the effects of Orcus monsters in your graveyard or link. Okay. So, before we go with this, in the tier limit mirror, you just simply make Abyss Dweller. I mean, it's banned now, but when it was actually being played, Abyss Dweller was legal, so, nice mirror. I went first, I make Dweller, I win. Anyway, continuing on from here, let's see. Your interactions are sent to the graveyard. We have Snatch Steal. We have Negate Banish, which is insanely effective against your own deck. So if we just account for these 3, I guess. Well, actually, you would also have IP usually, so you have the Enlil Girsu effect to send as well. Yeah, just straight up, I'd say so. So let's say you normal summon, we'll say Girsu. I will go ahead and Snatch Steal Girsu, I think, and then whatever you send to the graveyard, I'll just go ahead and just get rid of Enlil Girsu now, I'm thinking. And I'll probably bring back Galatea as well. So I have a link monster on the field, and then I'll go ahead and banish whatever you sent with Girsu because it's not a quick effect with SP Lil Knight. So I'll go ahead and SP that. And then if you put another guy onto the board, I can use Enlil Girsu's effect to send, and then I also have Dink Girsu's effect to send, and then, if you want to do any funny business, there's also technically Crescendo as well. So we can Crescendo, Omni Negate, whatever else you're trying. And I mean, no matter what you normal summon, this is pretty much the same outcome. So you're basically not going to be able to do anything. And we get to permanently keep your Girsu too, which is something. Or your Harp Horror, in this case. If we did take Harp Horror, we have the idea of finishing the Harp Horror by linking it off with SP or with IP into SP. Or we could just, just hold onto it on the field where you can't interact or do anything with it. Because you can't put another body on the field here. So yeah, you basically just get cooked in the mirror here because you're not really doing super well against these interactions, basically. And typically, I think that there shouldn't be, well, that for any going first deck at least, you shouldn't be able to beat your own deck's kind of combo with your engine. Like that's just not a thing that happens for the most part. I guess like Kishtira can kind of do it, which leans it the other way, but yeah, I hate mirrors essentially. And I do like more unique boss monsters though, that are kind of just, I guess, built or kind of like made for a specific deck, I guess, right? So you take my Aruha kind of useless when you have it. When I have Aruha though, it can float into Rakea, floats into Sarama. Sarama floats into Abominable Unchained Soul, and Abominable Unchained Soul can pop, so that's pretty nice. For example, I guess. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.